Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another awesome interview. We are keeping it geekly with our brand new guest, Chris Hill of Rapture Burgers. We're going to be breaking down the Kickstarter for his brand new manga. It's going to be a post-apocalyptic sci-fi comedy about a high school student trying to take over the world. And I had the chance to read the preview pages on Global Comics, and wow, this was such an interesting story. I really dig what you're trying to build with not only the protagonist but the world around it. Chris, this was awesome, man. How are you? Welcome to today's stream.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well. You know, it's 9 a.m. out here in California, so
I'm bright and early.
Yeah, morning voice, which is great for podcasts and stuff.
Yeah,
that little extra. But you know, it's I'm working on that Kickstarter, promoting. It's going well enough so far. I had it's been a few years since I've really done promotion for anything, so. I did a long campaign to kind of get back on the bicycle, you know, because I talk about this in the video on the Kickstarter. This is sort of a retelling of an original graphic novel series that I had done years in the past. And so, yeah, I took a break from making comics, and now I'm back making this new version of it and this new format even.
So was the first version of it in a comic format?
It was. It was drawn by an American artist named Mimi Alves, and the style is sort of interesting. It's almost like a Nickelodeon-ish square heads and stuff like that. But we did about 3 volumes of it, actually.
Wow.
We got 2 physical print runs, and we were selling them at Kamikaze, which is now LA Comic-Con. And we were doing okay. We were working on a 4th volume that we didn't quite finish, and I got tied up in trying to turn it into an animated series for a couple years, which was going pretty well. We got some animation done, we got some voice work done, but things sort of shifted, and I continued to work in the background on the animation side, but I decided that I wanted to take everything that I had learned, because I had started the original Rapture Burgers, like writing it when I was like 19.
What was it called? The first name?
Rapture Burgers.
Okay, still. I gotcha.
But I mean, I started writing when I was like 19 or 20, and just sort of kept evolving and evolving. And sort of our starting point was sort of a silly webcomic that was supposed to be a punchy joke at the end of every page, and then it turned into, oh no, this is like a sprawling epic about more than just like silly comedy stuff. And you know, in retrospect, I'm like, we made it work the best we could, but I was taking a lot of influence from manga in the first place, and actually Scott Pilgrim for a bit of it. And you know, I started studying Japanese a few years back, like seriously studying, like one-on-one tutor 4 times a week, like seriously.
Okay, yeah, you're putting that work in.
And I sort of used the opportunity to find a way to reach out to a Japanese artist and start working with them, because I was like, you know, what I always really wanted to do was like a manga. So,
so did you communicate to them in Japanese, or were they able to talk to you in English?
So Pepper, the artist goes by Pepper. They speak some English, but not enough English for us to actually converse like normally. Sometimes we'll get on cam and like have a conversation in simple English, but I also try to practice Japanese, and I read their Japanese a lot, or I try to listen to their Japanese a lot. For a while, we had an interpreter translator helping us out a lot to communicate. But lately, I think we've reached a point where I understand enough Japanese, and they understand enough English that we're getting by and using DeepL in the middle to help us if we don't understand something.
So how's that feel though? Like when you first started this in comic format, now you're actually like using Japanese to talk to a Japanese artist to create it in manga format. Like how's that feel for you? Just like, I guess, reflecting back on that.
It keeps it feeling fresh, I guess, because I mean, to go back to like the whole progression of this, it started out as like a text document on my desktop PC where I had written an ending. And then my youngest sibling helped me with character designs. And then we spent years just sort of kicking ideas around, trying to do the first 2 chapters that I had written of like a very rough story. And then eventually in like 2012 or 2013, I met Mimi Alves, who was the artist for the American like graphic novel version. And we spent like 6 years working on it. And like I said, we went through like 3 whole volumes. So even just that was like, we're making so much progress suddenly. So it all kept feeling fresh because I was like, well, I've never been to this stage before. I've never been to this step. And then going to the animation, also that's a whole new experience, and having to rewrite the beginning of the story and try to like write out season summaries for like 6 seasons and flesh out characters and change things. So it's felt like just a continual, like, even though the actual story itself hasn't changed that much and it's the same premise, everything around it keeps changing. And that's the only way I haven't gotten like, ugh, I'm sick of doing this. Because now we're like, oh, well, now I'm working with an artist and communicating in English and Japanese, and because I can't draw for anything, I draw stick figures.
Me either.
That's about all I can do. I'm at the whim of the artist interpreting my words and my story, and every time I see a new artist do it, I'm like, oh, this is like a different world. Like this is totally different. And sort of matching with an artist takes time for me to get to the point where I just trust them and they understand sort of what I mean and what the vision is. And it's also me adjusting to, they're going to interpret my description of a confused face a different way, or they're And
real quick though, I do want to dive in. You were doing some animation with the first comic. Like, what happened with that? Like, it sounded like you had like a lot. Like, you had the voice actors, you had some of the animation done. You said you rewrote some of the beginning part. Like, so it sounded like you were right there.
So this sort of goes back to, it's easier to make something than to get it sold. Which I feel the same way about comics. Like, I can make comics all day, but like selling it is the hard part. Advertising it, marketing it, that's the hard part for me. So with the animation, I had partnered with an American animation studio who kind of gave me a good deal of, we'll work on it when we have time, and therefore for a lower cost. So I approached them wanting to do like a 1.5 minutes, like an opening animation sequence, just to advertise the comic and stuff like that. And that grew into 5 minutes because they said, well, 1.5 minutes, not that much. So let's do 5 minutes. And then that grew into, let's just do the whole pilot. So even that process was, I wrote 1.5 minutes, then I wrote 5 minutes, and then I rewrote 5 minutes like 10 times. And then I wrote a 22-minute pilot, and then rewrote that a bunch of times, because there's, especially by that point, I had expanded the story so much that it was like, okay, sure, it's about Camille trying to take over the world, but it's also this post-apocalyptic world. There's like an omniscient voice that speaks to him. There's like multiverse shenanigans later on. There's like a lot of different layers of stuff that happens, and it's easy to get caught up in like, but we want to show all of that in 5 minutes. We want to show parts of all of that. And I was like, you can't do that. And there's also like a bunch of different characters who show up later. And so the rewriting was working with the sort of animation director, who was like, well, we should show this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try. And we're not happy with that. Let's try again. And when we eventually got to the pilot, we reused most of the animation that we had done for the 5-minute segment and expanded that into 22 minutes. And we got an animatic done for all 22 minutes. Like, I have a full animatic, and I helped do the scratch track. So I recorded a bunch of the voices myself with some of my friends. But then we did hire a few actors. Like, only one was notable, and I can't say his name because his agent would be mad at him. But, we went through this whole process. Like, I went to recording studios. I like edited the script on the fly, like, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, there are really great parts of the pilot. But as a whole, it was still trying to do a little too much, and it was a little patchworky because we were reusing parts of animation from another concept effectively. And I just was sort of like, well, not super happy with how it ended up, and you know, we were trying to get our foot in the door with like Warner Brothers or HBO or Netflix, and we just weren't getting the kind of traction we wanted to even get in the door to pitch. So I eventually just sort of started to branch out and found a different, like, executive producer level person that I started to work with, and we went back to scratch. We rewrote the pilot again, completely from scratch. Wrote a pitch deck, and we did actually get to pitch it to Warner Brothers a couple times. And you know, again, it's sort of easier to make something than it is to sell.
Yeah. I mean, dude, when I was listening to that, I could only imagine just how tedious that felt, having to rewrite everything over and over, especially like trying to milk like that much of an episode from like your original like 1 minute, you know, animation, and trying to force that out. Man, that would have been like just so much work. How did you feel about like revising it though, like with someone else, and like, do you think that ended up being a lot better of a product?
It depends on the person you're working with, because you know, some people have a different story sense. They value different aspects. So there was a strong push from a few different people, really, that what we should really go forward with is Camille got broken up with. That's relatable. And since he got broken up with, that's why he's trying to take over the world. And it's like, well, if you go forward with that as like the leading aspect, does that sound misogynistic at all? If what we're saying is the sole reason why he wants to take over the world is get revenge on a woman. And I was like, no, let's not do that. But it just depends on the person you're working with, because they have different ideas of what is valuable, what might sell. And I was happy with the producer I landed with most recently. He has a good story sense that matches with mine, and so his feedback was very helpful. It was sort of respecting the vision that I was trying to put forward in the new pilot that I was writing, but saying like, but you know, you should have a moment like this between Camille and Rose, or you should show us at the beginning sort of where this is going, so we're hooked a little. So I did find that very, very helpful, and because the way it started originally was just that as a sort of gag that didn't really foreshadow anything, and it was very rough, and the humor really wasn't there. So I was very happy to redo the beginning, especially, and get it to a point where I'm like, yeah, I want to show this off. This is something.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about the animation. What about the original comic? You said you had 3 volumes of it out. Was it at this point that you decided to kind of rewrite it into a manga format, or when did that transition happen?
Well, yeah, so we had finished the 3 volumes, and honestly, I took a break. I had been at conventions exhibiting. I had it on Amazon, and when I was physically in person selling the book, I could get good traction, but the online marketing was rough. And I'm one person, you know, I'm the sole person funding and like pushing this forward.
It's hard.
Yeah. So if I'm like focused on the animation, then I can't focus on selling books as much.
Yeah.
And so that's basically when I took a break from the comic side for like 2 or 3 years and just didn't really try to sell it, didn't really do anything with it. And it was after all the experiences, rewriting, summarizing the story as 6 seasons and not a movie, but really breaking down.
Was the movie your original like plan?
No, that's we talked about, could we make it into a trilogy of movies, and I was like, maybe I could condense a lot of stuff and cut a lot of stuff out. But you know, it's always been meant, well, I say it evolved into the intention was that it's a story that needs a lot of room to breathe and build out. And so it's after a few years and working with all the animation stuff and getting a better sense of what is the story as a whole, how am I going to start the story, that I decided, you know, the art was like evolved in the original graphic novel. Like it evolved from this is very rough to this is more polished. This looks like a unique style. And so eventually, like, we got to a point where I think we were all happier with the art style, but we were definitely growing. And it's just me looking back at, it wasn't the, I wasn't at a place as a writer where I could write it the way that I really wanted. And we evolved with the art for a long time. And basically I was like, I really want to tell this story one way or another, the sort of the director's cut or the way I intend to tell it. And if I'm going to retell it, I want to do it in the style that I have always wanted to do, just manga, like with the Japanese artists. And so that was sort of like, you know what? If I'm going to redo it, this is the only way I'm going to redo it.
Yeah.
And
so what's like held you back from like hiring someone to kind of help you take some of that workload off your shoulders? I guess, is there any reasoning behind it?
Well, so it depends on the kind of position that you mean, because again, it's all out of my own pocket. It's sort of at my own pace, which is
yeah,
nice.
I gotcha. I mean, like, someone maybe to help you kind of sell the animation while you're working on the comics, or vice versa. Someone to kind of just take some of that load off your shoulder.
The ideal person to do that would be like an agent or a manager to sell the animation. And we tried to get in the door with some agents and managers and talent agencies, and that's an uphill battle. A lot of the agents and managers are like, let me know when you sell your show and then I'll come on.
Oh,
it's the way entertainment works.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And now there's been a lot more networking on Twitter and stuff where you might be able to find like a graphic novel agent or manager if you look hard enough as a writer, and if they like your story pitch. And honestly, after a while, because we submitted to publishers with the original, like we went through that whole process, and after a while I was like, you know what, I'm gonna will this into existence by force.
Yeah.
Out of spite.
That's basically how this podcast happened, was out of spite as well. And it was one of those things where a lot of times, like, I just got up and I was like, I need to do this because it needs to get done. Like, it's not going to get done if I don't do it. And I don't know, like, for me, like, I definitely can respect like taking it all on the shoulders and carrying it yourself. It does get overwhelming though, doing the social media stuff, because like you almost have to spend so much time like marketing your stuff on social media that like what time's left? Like, it's like you wish you had that time to work on it and spend a little time like social media in it,
Yeah, and lately the good thing that I will say is Mimi, when they were working on the graphic novel version, basically I could send pages over and I would get them back in a week or two, and then I would review them. So for me as a non-artist, the actual production part of it has become more hands-off. Right now for the manga version, we have a Discord server, and I review the pages when they're ready and give any notes. And otherwise, like, Pepper is also very independent and does a lot of great work on their own. We brought in an assistant to help offload some of the work from Pepper to do like shading, tonings, 3D models for backgrounds, stuff like that. And the hope is that we can become sort of autonomous, and they understand what I'm asking for. Where the heaviest part for me is writing the script, which I do in advance by a long shot. Like, I have like 3 whole scripts ready to go, and we're still working on the first one. So I get ahead of the writing by a lot. And then after that, months and months, it's just waiting on the art, waiting on like reviewing the art. So I actually do have time to work on other things, but of course I also have a full-time day job. Yeah. And I'm like, have other responsibilities and do martial arts and all that stuff.
Well, what martial arts do you do?
It's called Shinkindo. It's a Japanese sword martial art that's
fucking awesome.
If you know Iaido at all, it's similar to Iaido, but there's a whole philosophy behind it. But yeah, the swords behind me are for-use swords that I use for we do target cutting for, to check your form, to make sure
with the bamboo stalks.
It's tatami mats, so like the floor mats that are used in Japan, we use the top part of it, and we also do cut bamboo. But like, these are one of those swords is like a 300-year-old Edo era sword.
That is so cool, dude.
The other are from the Showa era, like 70s and 80s. But yeah, it's fun.
I do a little bit myself. We do stand-up martial arts, Kenpo. I do it with my daughter. She does it with me, and then I have 2 little boys. I'm trying to. They mostly are just like wrestling with each other on the mats. But we're actually working. We already got our yellow belt, so we've been studying and trying to get the next belt up. And I mostly did it to kind of just get my daughter into it,
Yeah.
I knew she would do it if I did it alongside with her. But it's fun, I love it. I love just like how disciplined it makes you and everything.
Yeah, it's a good community too, and especially during the pandemic, it was a great way. I'm gonna leave the house 3 times a week for 2 hours at a time, and I'm gonna interact with people who don't live in my house.
That is so cool, though. So I've always wanted to learn the swords and stuff, and I just don't think it's around my area. I'm in not the sticks in Ohio, but like we're surrounded by corn in a lot of the regions here.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm from Oklahoma originally, and I think I took one kendo class when I was in Oklahoma City for a couple years, and decided that wasn't really for me because kendo is a sport. That's the thing is, and I was like, it's like boxing. I don't really want to do a sport. So I waited until I moved to LA, and then finally was like, all right, I'm gonna go for it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very interesting, you learn a lot about culture. There is a discipline aspect. There is you're never going to get into a sword fight. Let's just say that up front. You're never going to get into a sword fight. So leave your illusions outside.
Yeah, I mean, because what are the odds you're going to be walking on the subway, packing your katana and someone else has theirs?
Yeah, only in Texas where you can open carry swords. That's the only place in my.
Do you do it like a pack of you guys just randomly going down to Texas every now and then? You never know. You never know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm we also do bojutsu, so staff work and stuff. I'm more likely I would use that. I'm hiking or something and I have a 5-foot pole or a 6-foot pole. That's the more likely thing I would use.
All right, I'm good at getting off tangent. Let me reel it back. Let me bring it back. So let's kind of start breaking this down before we get into the Kickstarter. What was behind Rapture Burgers? Because that is such an interesting name. And I also want to go over the name for our protagonist and Rose as well. Any significant meaning behind those names too?
So Rapture Burger is the name. So naming things is hard. Is the first part. If you've ever been in a room, what do we call this?
Imagine having a kid. That's going to be their name for the rest of their life.
Oh, man. Oh, that's much worse.
We're going to name this one Rapture Burger.
Yeah. So I grew up in Oklahoma, which is part of the Bible Belt and stuff. And Adam, who's co-writer, not present, may he rest in peace in Oklahoma. He went to a very Christian university and he knows a decent amount just from going to that university, but some of the undertones in Rapture Burgers are sort of neutral, deep cut references to some biblical things to just as part of American culture. There's some parts of American culture, and depending on where you live, they're more ingrained than you'd think. And so we started to slip in little references and little bits, but we originally had the idea to call it something like MAD, like mutually assured destruction, but you're that's a terrible name. And as we started to build the world out, we started to say all right, so this is post-apocalyptic. Is it also sci-fi? Is it dystopian fiction? Because one of the tropes of sci-fi and dystopian futures is there's a mega corporation. There's Wallace Corporation and Blade Runner. There's Weyland Yutani and Aliens universe. So you're there can be a mega corporation, and this is part of building out the backstory of how did we get to a post-apocalypse? What happened exactly? Why are there space elevators? Because I'm a sci-fi nerd and I put space elevators in it. And so we sort of landed on, what if there's this ominous sounding company called the Rapture Corporation that has some sort of religious undertones to it? Because Rapture Corporation is an ominous name, and building up from there, because they sound evil. They sound dystopian, they're a depressing world. And
I would not want to eat their burgers. No.
Yeah, and so I describe them as a mixture of Walmart and Raytheon. So they're a defense contractor who makes weapons, but they also sell home goods. And the natural offshoot of that was, what if they had a fast food restaurant too? And it was Rapture Burgers, which is a weird, ominous sounding name for a burger restaurant, but We were also kind of going for this heightened, silly reality, especially originally. Like the high school is Attila the High School, just because. And there were silly background businesses, and signs for like a veterinary clinic that was half off neutering. We were just throwing silly stuff in the background.
Was that from your days creating the comics that always ended with a punch? Like taking that and throwing that into it?
Yeah. There was a lot of it that came from that. But it was also to put this heightened, silly world around it, to say, this is a sort of silly, fun post-apocalypse instead of being like grimdark. And we wanted to convey that tone, especially in the original graphic novel, is that this is more of a fun, lighthearted version of the post-apocalypse where silly things happen and we can keep a light tone and then punch you in the gut later.
Yeah.
That's all we do. So we sort of, there's a little bit of a pivotal moment later on where Camille ends up working at a Rapture Burgers and starts to suspect that the Rapture Corporation is trying to conquer the world, which is his game, by the way. They're his competition at that point. And, this is sort of like, okay, so we call it Rapture Burgers. I mean, it's a catchy name. It's a weird name. You will later come to maybe understand that it was an important plot point, but more than anything, it's an interesting, like, catchy name that everybody remembers. And now I can also say it goes in the long tradition of like titles for manga, like why is it called Bleach? Anybody know why it's called Bleach?
Or no, why? I've never thought of that.
Nobody knows.
Attack on Titan, though, that's kind of, that's what they do.
No. So Attack on Titan is actually a pun because in Attack on Titan universe, eventually it comes out that Aaron's Titan is called the Attacker Titan.
Oh,
if translated into English. And the creator made a pun based on Attack on Titan. And that's the origin of that name.
No, okay, that makes sense. We have a Dr. Hino 419 over on YouTube saying this looks fantastic. Oh, this is just wait till we dive into the Kickstarter. Those are just the preview pages. So our protagonist and Rose, are those like influenced by flowers?
So Camille is based on me personality-wise originally.
I meant the names, the influences for the names.
Oh, the name. Okay, so as part of the design process, we decided that we wanted to use basis of like me and my friends, but we weren't going to use our real names, and Camille specifically should not look like me. And so if he wasn't going to be me, and if he wasn't going to look like me, what should his name be? And I'm also a big Gundam fan.
Dude, hey, check this out. Let me show you. Got a whole wall of kits that I've built right there.
Oh, nice. I actually had a glass case full of like dozens, and I had gotten into airbrushing and all that stuff.
See, I'm too OCD. Like the stickers, like I have my scalpel, I put the sticker on, and if it's just off, I hate it. I can't imagine messing up with paint.
Well, and that was a problem, is I got too into the airbrushing, and it just halted all my progress, and I just gave up because I was like, I can't do this anymore. But anyway, I'm a huge Gundam fan, and Zeta Gundam, the protagonist name is Camille.
Okay, yeah.
And there was also the gag about like, he got teased, Camille's the girl's name, and he like raged out, and like that was the start of that plot, is that he punched a military officer for confusing his name with the girl's name. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's roll with Camille, but spell it with a C.
I'm not to interrupt you, but like now that I'm thinking about it, when he was fighting the kaiju, I was like, this looks oddly familiar. I'm wondering if this has any influence.
Oh yeah, huge giant robot fan. So in the original graphic novel, like in the first few chapters, there is a little bit of sensitivity about his name, because I was like, I'm making reference to that, but it's mostly gotten dropped, and so his name is carried forward as just Camille. That's who he is. His name is Camille. And Rose, her name comes from so the original seed for he's going to take over the world concept comes from My high school girlfriend, after we broke up, joked that I was going to conquer the world one day. And that was just a running gag that we had for a number of years, that I was going to conquer the world one day. And so she became the inspiration for Rose originally. And her middle name was Rose. And so we ran with that.
My God. Does she have any idea?
Yeah, no, she was very aware of it for especially the original graphic novel run, and was fine with that.
That's so funny. Do you any plans to kill her off?
No. Rose is a very important character in the story, it turns out. Yeah, and in fact, things just get wild and crazy the further into the story you get, because like the whole goal is to start from this sort of innocuous place of they're in a high school. Camille is totally harmless. He's just a bumbling idiot, like a rom-com protagonist. He doesn't know any better. He just does dumb things and fails his way upwards and gets closer and closer to his goal. But like shit hits the fan later, and it just gets really crazy. And that's the part I'm really excited for people to see.
So I was really, it was really humorous though in the beginning when he got broken up with. He almost thought that was a joke. Is that like what happened to you too?
No.
I was like, damn, dude, my man.
No, luckily, Camille and Rose really started to veer off of their inspirations and became their own characters. And we really leaned into Camille is a bad boyfriend. He's a really bad boyfriend.
Yeah. He couldn't even remember what flower she liked.
Yeah.
After 3 years, I was like, damn, dude, come on.
And I'm trying to highlight, like, no, listen. Camille was a terrible boyfriend. That's the joke. But to not confuse anybody that like, Rose is the problem. Like, no, Camille is the problem. You should understand.
Chris is like, and don't worry, I will remember the flowers you like. No worries.
Yeah. So it definitely, like in the original version, Camille maybe a little bit still reflected me in the early parts, and there were parts of writing it that I'd say to Adam, like, you're not even trying. You're just writing me from high school. Like, I recognize that. And
so real quick, before we dive into the Kickstarter too, you said you had a co-creator with this. Now moving forward without the co-creator, like how has it been like recreating the story like without his help?
Well, so I would describe him as sort of a co-writer. And that's
co-writer, sorry.
Sort of the position we land on. He still helps. He actually did co-write the scripts that are being drawn right now. So it's not that I'm working without him. It's he's more reclusive, and
I gotcha.
Has other things going on. So I end up being the front man for everything. Because even Pepper, and it goes back to Pepper's English isn't that great, but Pepper is doing their own kind of promotion on Facebook and stuff. And we also have our assistant. We also have Rachel, who is a visual consultant, who has been working on the MCU stuff for years.
Really? That's cool.
I'm the front man.
Yeah.
I'm the creator.
Hey, well, with that, let's go ahead and start diving into this Kickstarter. And then right here, we are looking at Rapture Burgers Volume 1. Let me go ahead and put that link in all of the chats right here. Guys, be sure to check this out with us. And I mean, there's some really awesome things on here tier-wise. Be sure to back. I mean, this is a phenomenal book. I had it. You can check out the preview for free on Global Comics. 30 pages of a 300-page volume. Phenomenal. So this is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi comedy about a high school student trying to take over the world. We are at 3,791 of 12,000. Congratulations on that to make that in 6 days. That is phenomenal. With 36 backers and 24 days to go.
Yeah, thank you. Our average pledge is really high, so the people who do back us seem to believe in us a lot, which is great.
Yeah, I wanted to get the digital. The thing is, man, I try to back when I can, but like in that aspect, I have to spread it out because like there's so many creators out here. Woo.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I mean, digitals are easy, right? I can send it off.
Well, for me, I also like the digitals too because I like to do little like previews of comics, like little like my own little breakdowns of them. And like that way I can like take the pages and like throw them in as a visual effect. And speaking of visual effect though, we do have a video here, so let's go ahead and check it out. Just to give you a heads up, it'll drain out your side of the volume since everything's through the desktop, so we won't be able to hear you while we play it.
Hi, my name is Chris Hill. You may remember me from LA Comic-Con, where I would loudly ask if you liked world domination from an artist alley table. I'm the creator, writer, and self-publisher of Rapture Burgers.
Square dance
and I'm here
caller.
to talk to you about the Rapture Burgers Volume 1 Kickstarter project. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to those of you who bought the volumes I published in the past, and to clarify that this Kickstarter project is for a brand new iteration of the same story. With that said, for those of you who don't already know, Rapture Burgers is the story of Camille, a below-average high school student who decides to conquer the world. Sometimes we describe the premise of Rapture Burgers as Pinky in the Brain if Pinky were in charge, which allows us to express the core concept without having to get into the details. But Rapture Burgers is so much more than that, and the challenge is choosing which parts of the story to highlight. You can find more information about Rapture Burgers on our campaign page, where you can, of course, support us by backing the project. The campaign rewards range from a digital copy of the book to exclusive swag and even a private meeting with the team to talk about whatever your heart desires, including how manga is made. We'll even play mahjong with you if that's your jam. With elements of romance, comedy, drama, and a bit of action, we hope there's something for everyone in Rapture
There was that mech suit I was talking about.
And we can't wait for you to be able to read it.
Yeah, 32% of its goal. Congratulations. So, Chris, how do you feel about it right now? 6 days in, you're almost at a third of your campaign. That has to be an awesome feeling.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to reach this point. Like I said, I'm trying to get my marketing legs back and sort of coming out from, I won't say I was in isolation or anything, but I definitely, it's good to, it feels great to have people come support it. And I'm really hopeful that we'll reach our goal, because part of the point of this is please come look at it. Please support us. Please pre-order it, because I want to know that there are people who want to read it. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start scrolling down. We have the story right here. It's a sci-fi comedy about love, loss, and a megalomania. You want to go ahead and take the wheel right here and give us a little breakdown?
Yeah. Do you want me to narrate it?
You can if you want.
Yeah. So Rapture Burgers is a sci-fi comedy about love, loss, and megalomania.
Your voice is so much better than mine too.
I've done this as a pitch for network, so I got practice. Our main character, Camille, will change the world as he knows it, all for an honestly not so great cause. That cause? To become the next, first, unquestioned ruler of the world. And all because an otherworldly voice that only he can hear may have vaguely suggested that it's his destiny. Also, his girlfriend broke up with him, nobody at school respects him, and most importantly, Supreme Emperor of the World has a nice ring to it. We sometimes describe the basic premise as Pinky in the Brain if Pinky were in charge. However, instead of an episodic comedy where nothing ever changes, Rapture Burgers is the epic story of Camille's unlikely attempt to rise to power, set in a post-apocalyptic world that hasn't quite returned to normal, and featuring a diverse cast of unique characters with deep histories and complex personalities.
And then there's actual, on the Kickstarter link, you could scroll all the way down to check out that 30-page preview that I was talking about as well. I just wanted to make a note of that. So right here are some of the preview pages. What's going on in the scene? What are we looking at right here?
This actually is not in the 30-page preview. This is this is a little bit after that. Camille has summoned his best friend Sydney outside and is trying to break the bad news to him that, this will be very disappointing for you, Sydney, but Rose broke up with me. And Sydney is a very deadpan character who isn't afraid to call Camille out on his Sydney is very, very fun character because he gets to be the straight man to Camille's sort of manic rambling, and so he gets to poke holes in it every once in a while to just say, "Oh yeah, you sure it wasn't all of these reasons?" But there's also a little bit Camille's delusion that no, I was a great boyfriend, and then Sydney lists out a variety of reasons, a grease fire at birthday party, and there's a whole incident involving wasps.
Stood her up at homecoming. Oh my god! Into a
Yeah.
block of fancy cheddar.
Wasn't even double cloud jester or anything. It's cheap cheddar.
Oh my goodness! Did you do that? Is that you or no?
No, none of this stuff.
I was like,
Man,
damn,
I'd
my
be in
man likes
trouble.
cheese.
Yeah, this is all
Minor
exaggerations on, like-
transgressions. I love this part right here too. This is hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny because Camille gets to use words bigger than he should know, because they're funny, like minor transgressions.
And I love Pepper, like their ability to kind of just take these different styles and just implement them. I love how like right here this looks compared to like, you know, the freaking out fanged look.
Yeah,
awesome
and this
ability.
is I encourage them to do this sort of thing where this is one of the things, like if you've read Full Metal Alchemist, it could turn suddenly into, and now they're like SD super deformed cutesy characters, or they have like these wild expressions. And that's one of the things I really love about manga, is that being able to do that deformation very suddenly and it looks natural. So I definitely encourage them to do more of this stuff to emphasize the humor.
So right now we see a little bit more of a breakdown where you talk about pretty much what to expect. So if you want to take this wheel again, you can.
Yeah. You know, I already said it once in writing, so I'll say it again. So, of course, one does not simply become the supreme leader of humanity. So our story begins with Camille's flailing attempts to both establish himself as a local despot and win his ex-girlfriend back before going to the big leagues. Camille's outrageous ambitions will rock the post-apocalypse to its core, exposing long-hidden secrets behind the event that destroyed most of the world and crossing paths with unexpected enemies and allies. With no superpowers to speak of, wits that could only be described as dim, and an intellect on par with an excited ferret, Camille will have to ascend to the throne atop the world the only way he knows how, by failing upwards. And in a world that's more fragile than ever, he might just pull it off. Somehow.
Then we get, this is a little bit of a look into the future, right? Past that point.
This is from like the opening pages that
Which
show
was
us,
set
like,
in 2053, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the year I chose.
Any like significance for putting it in that time period?
No, and in fact, it's an alternate history anyway. I have a whole timeline written out that starts in like the 1970s that talks about like who were the Rapture Corporation originally.
Okay.
How did they sort of come into more power? When were the space elevators built? And it'll become more clear later that this is an alternate history, not based on our own world. But it was extrapolating from, a little bit did come from, okay, so the year was 2004 when I started this. So when was Camille born? When does the story take place? And let's try to set that in real years. And let's set that forward X number of years. So
I gotcha.
There's logical reasoning why it goes further into the future, but it's mostly that I made a fictional timeline that had to be similar to our calendar.
So how old do we see Camille at this point?
So he's 18 in real time. So, you know, throw 5 years on that. He's like 23, 24-ish in this future. And a lot of things have changed. You know, you don't expect to see him sitting on a throne or anything.
Yeah. And switching to fire mode. This, I'm not going to spoil it, but this gets pretty intense.
Yeah, and if you've ever watched Gurren Lagann, that was a little bit of like, you know what? They did it successfully where they can flash forward to a future. You have no idea what's happening. But later, in retrospect, you realize that it all came together. And I was like, oh, I see. That was from the future where these things happen.
And I really love Pepper's attention to detail with all this lettering. I can't read Japanese, so I have no idea.
We actually have been working on whether or not we fully translate the sound effects into English and have them redrawn, because our current assistant does a good job at redrawing sound effects, or if we subtitle them. And so we're sort of figuring that out a little bit.
You know, as like a consumer standpoint, I think it looks cool. I don't know. I think maybe Berserk, the way they did it was kind of cool. How they had it, and then like they had the word very small, like right next to it, like what it said.
Yeah, and
like you could barely notice it, but if you looked, you could tell.
Yeah, like in the panel below, we sort of subtitled the boom.
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
Effects. And so we're going back and forth on that because this big one that's like a blast sound, does it look good subtitled, or should we replace it with like a hand drawn?
And I think that's where like English just doesn't like look as cool. I mean, it just really depends. If the lettering's done correctly, it can look cool, but like you can't just have boom 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 and it look as cool as like
in this case, do 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 in Japanese. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it adds that, that I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
Well, we sort of said it's like for authenticity because
yes.
If Pepper is the person drawing it and thinking up the sound effects, it's authentic to like the art that they're drawing.
Yes.
And the good thing is because we're working directly with Pepper and we're not translating this after the fact, we actually have access to the same brushes that Pepper is using to draw these effects. So we'll probably try out and maybe ask people like, look, this is redrawn in English using the same brush, roughly in the same style, but does it look lame now that it's in English?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of like, because I can translate all of these and subtitle them, but if it becomes, there are some pages where the sound effect is so integrated into the page that it looks awkward to have a subtitle. So like, do I replace it? Do I like put it as a footnote?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. So right here is, this is the cover, correct?
This might be a cover. This is like a mock-up of a cover.
Okay, I got you. So what are we seeing here?
So this is there's a little history to this actually. These are the original drawings that I had Pepper do as a test for whether or not I was going to work with them, like making this as a manga.
Okay.
So I sent them the old character designs of Camille and Alex. Alex is the character on the right, and said, draw these in your own style. Like, whatever your own style is, draw them. And so I was very impressed when they did them this way. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's work together.
Like, you knew like at that moment you finally found your person?
Yeah, and part of it was just sort of overcoming the language barrier and also getting a good working relationship built up where we could really do this. So the character designs have changed a little bit. Like the characters in the internal art don't look quite the same as this, but this was what they're based on for Pepper.
So did you give Pepper any description for like a robotic arm? Like was this part of Alex's design?
It is part of Alex's design, and the thing about like, because I've done the original one and then I did a bunch of design phases on the animation, I even did a design phase with the studio out of the Philippines who also tested to do it as manga. So I had like 3 different versions of her character design to send, and I also had a very good detailed drawing of both sides of a mechanical arm for Alex that I was able to send as reference. So I didn't have to describe it. I was just able to send like, here's your references, draw from this.
That's awesome that they were able to produce this like with that. Like that's so cool. This is such a cool design. Any meaning behind like the different colored eyes, or was that just kind of the aesthetic?
For Alex, just heterochromia was the aesthetic for her, but there might be, I don't want to go into too much detail about histories and stuff with the characters, but there might be an in-universe reason, similar for why does Camille have wings on his head when nobody else has that sort of thing. There's sort of like mutations, deformations that come from the world that they live in. That comes into play a little later.
And then this kind of gives us a little bit of a breakdown.
It talks a little bit about Alex because she doesn't get enough, because the basic premise is about Camille. She doesn't get as much detail about her yet. Okay. So while Camille wreaks havoc inside the safety of his walled town, our second main character, Alex, lives out in the wasteland that makes up most of North America. Alex works for a paramilitary organization called Estrella, whose primary goal is to protect the peace from anarchic wasteland groups, which include a rogue gang of lawyers who get really personal with injuries, and a cult that worships Bigfoot, the monster truck. Our first volume follows Alex on a routine infiltration mission and introduces the wider world that exists outside of Camille's daily life. Of course, Camille's ambitions may put him on Alex and Estrella's radar someday. And then I go on to say, with elements of comedy, drama, and a bit of action, and even action, we hope there's something for everyone in Rapture Burgers, and we can't wait for you to be able to read it.
So, Alex's story like intertwines with Camille's?
Yeah, so it's the start of the story is all focused on Camille, and then to build out the world outside of his high school and his town, we introduce Alex and the world that she lives in outside and the mission that she's on. And over time, their stories start to intertwine. And it's a little bit to say that it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game, because Camille starts to disrupt things inside of his town, and the group that Alex works for happens to be the group that would come stop people like him.
I gotcha.
And how does that work out?
So it's not like two separate stories, like her story is going to still be intertwined within this volume?
Within this volume, there'll be a little bit two separate stories.
Okay, no, I got you. I wasn't sure if maybe there was a whole nother book coming out just for Alex, or if that was going to be something where you're integrating her into the story.
In the original American graphic novel, we didn't introduce her until the second volume.
Okay.
So like the opening page of the second volume introduced Alex, but this time we're bringing her back to say she's a very, very, very important character. She is legitimately the secondary main character. And so we want to start to tell her story alongside Camille's story, and then build them out together and let them intertwine in the natural way that they should.
So is this the same characters just done in a different style, or are these two different characters? That's
still Alex on the right, just done in slightly different style. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a whole new character then too.
Yeah, his name is Jack. He
okay,
is,
all right.
Someone that Alex meets out in the wasteland, and they end up kind of going on adventures and missions together. He's a really cool character who is like unique to the animation and now the manga version.
Okay. Yeah, I asked that because I noticed like the eyes and I noticed the arms, so I was like, okay, this has to be Alex.
Yeah,
but I was like, this guy looks nothing like Camille, so I'm wondering if maybe this was like one of those first prototype drawings or not. So this is your profile picture? Is he one of your favorites?
He's become kind of favorite. He's a really kind of cool, would-be smooth-talking character, but is a little bit not that great at smooth talking.
Okay.
But yeah, he's gonna be a very interesting character to introduce and sort of flesh out. And I'm basically like, well, I don't want to say too much about him because
you're fine. So is this like a variant cover then?
Yeah, so actually the reason why I have a few different cover mock-ups is because a friend of mine works in props and was doing a pilot for an Amazon show, and said, we need some manga covers or like books that we can clear through legal very easily. And I was like, I have some, let me mock some up real quick. And so I made 3 covers for manga, and they originally had like numbers and names on them too, for the artists and stuff. And
do you have the third cover on here?
I didn't put the third cover on here.
I didn't mean to interrupt you because I was going to go look for it to look at it.
It has Camille like with the dogs and stuff gesturing towards the moon. But
the wolf picture.
Yeah. There's a version of that that's cut into a cover. But they're sort of cover mock-ups to show like we might use something like this. But they were also something that I used for that specific request of, if you're going to put it in the background of a pilot, yeah, here, use my stuff, please. I could use the publicity.
So did that pilot end up coming out?
It got picked up to a show, but I don't know if it's going to come out anytime soon. And
I gotcha. That's still cool though. Like, so you're going to have some of your work in there?
Hopefully. They might have had
That's
to remove
awesome.
it because they asked to debulk the set, but it was there. It was there for a minute.
Yeah. Not many people can say that. So we're looking at another interior page. What's going on right here?
So the teacher is doing roll call, and is surprised by Camille climbing out the window of the classroom, as you do. And this is actually, so the preview ends with Camille waking up from his dream. This is a little bit of a follow-up of what does he do after embarrassing himself in front of the class? Just leave.
And this is after Rose broke up with him, right?
Yeah, this is all after Rose broke up with them, and this is also highlighting Camille as sort of an idiot.
See you suckers, I'm off to jury duty. Today is a trial of my patience.
And he falls on his face.
And then the teacher. See, I Pepper, like the expressions Pepper was able to portray in this are just phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, it's really like it's really sort of hitting my my dream. What the kind of manga that I want to make.
So right here is a breakdown of the campaign as well. So this is just a little summary of what you're trying to do with it, right?
Yeah, just to say that with this project, we hope to fund the production of the first volume of the original manga series, Rapture Burgers. I'm excited to be working with Pepper, professional manga artist from Japan, to explore the world of Rapture Burgers in a format I've drawn a lot of inspiration from, using the detailed, dynamic style of manga readers know and love, while still being accessible to Western comic fans.
I love this scene too. So what was this, a kaiju? Was I right on that, or was this something completely different?
Yeah, no, you could call it a kaiju because I mean it's a giant monster. And
see, I'm trying to get more well versed, so I feel good. That's my first victory for today.
And this was Pepper's original design. I said,
badass.
There will be a fight between a giant robot and a monster. Come up with whatever you got for a monster.
So did you design the robot then? Like,
I had someone who specializes in designing robots and mechanical things. It's another Japanese artist that I work with sometimes. I had him do the design for the robot, and Pepper used that design to great effect.
Yeah, no, it was so cool. I was like, man, this has a little taste of everything in it.
Yeah, and I've said this preview, especially the first sort of chapter of this, is trying to be a little bit of an art flex to be like, look, this is the kind of style, this is the kind of detail that we're going for. I hope you can appreciate, like, this is what it will look like.
So right here's just a little explanation about Pepper being a trained manga artist and a native Japanese speaker, and that you've chosen to draw the book as a traditional manga with right to left reading order and sound effects in Japanese.
Yep, and for authenticity purposes for now, unless we decide otherwise, we're putting subtitles on the Japanese sound effects, and we may replace some if they don't look good subtitled, which is all subjective anyway. But Japanese has a surprising amount of onomatopoeia for things that we don't have in English. Yeah. And so it's almost a different language of communicating as a visual style, because having the sound effect for staring, having the sound effect for head turning, it adds something to where you
like right
know
here,
the action that's happening. And this is like howl, the wind is howling.
So what does this say right here? Do you are you able? And what about right here? Same.
Yeah. This is one big sound effect that just goes.
Oh, it goes through. Okay, I gotcha. So it's kind of just symbolizing that the wind's blowing.
Yeah. Which we can maybe do in English. We were talking about, can we replace that and have it snake through the same way?
I don't know. I see, and that's the trouble. The only thing I could think about would maybe throw like small lines that would symbolize a breeze, because I don't think having that in English would look, when you think about it like that would take away from the beauty of the letters and the symbols. Yeah,
and this is a challenge, because I can read that now and it just says go. It's just an O sound that keeps going. But this sort of highlights but that looks really nice and cool and integrated into the page. So we'll find a way to translate those in a useful
how
way.
It is with dramatic winds and cool coats.
Yeah.
So right here, we've been hard at work for over a year, so we have a good head start, and around half of the volume is in various stages of completion. All the scripts have already been written, and we expect this volume to be around 300 pages of story content. With your support, we'll be able to finish the volume at a quicker pace and cover printing costs. And right here is a little breakdown of the crew. So if you want to go ahead and take the wheel again, you can start breaking down the members of your team.
Yeah. Yep. So first off is me, creator, writer, publisher. I'm Black American writer, engineer, swordsman, and pretty good ramen cook. I make ramen from scratch. I also ferment miso in my backyard, but that's a whole thing. So I've been the driving force behind the project from the beginning, and I've so far self-funded its production, including the previous 3 graphic novel volumes of Rapture Burgers and the animation. Additionally, I continue to pitch Rapture Burgers and other projects as animated series to various networks. Then we have Pepper, who's the illustrator or manga artist. And Pepper is a non-binary Japanese illustrator and manga artist living in Nara Prefecture, Japan. They have been active as a professional artist for 5 years, working as a manga assistant for, that's a typo, for more than half of that time. Pepper has experience creating illustrations for companies, as well as taking commissions for manga and illustration work from individuals. I should revise that.
No, you're good. Hey, see, that's why going through this, sometimes it helps you guys too.
Yeah, we read this so many times, and I had like 3 different people help me, and none of us. Anyway, and then we have I'll go from the left. Mimi, who is our current manga assistant, and Mimi is a non-binary Franco-Moroccan artist living in the U.S. who joined the project as an assistant to Pepper. While Rapture Burgers is Mimi's first long-term manga project, she's quickly learning the intricacies of the manga sort of art style.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Adam. Adam has been a crucial creator on the team since day one and acts as co-writer along with me, Chris. And then we have Rachel, who acts as a visual consultant and immoral support. And Rachel is a professional art director and production designer for film and television. After multiple projects in historical fantasy and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she specializes in multiverses, time travel, and magical realism. She has co-created several animated projects with Chris that the pair are pitching together.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Rachel actually worked on Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home and Shang-Chi. And it's there's some interesting stories that come from those.
Yeah, that is oh man, that is so cool. So right here are some of the rewards to look at. Our rewards include a simple digital copy of the book, 2 choices of physical release format, and a lot of goodies on the side. We also have a couple of secret menu items that include things like meeting with the team, a custom illustrator, or is that supposed to say illustration?
Illustration.
From Pepper. I'm sorry, and exclusive apparel. And don't forget to check out our add-ons where you can become a background character in the manga itself, or get an advice session with someone on the team. Our bonus materials will include mini comics, additional art, and a retrospective of the journey making the series. And then designs for things like posters, patches, shirts, hats are all pending and will be updated as we work through them. Our team has experience making and designing print comics, posters, apparel, and various other physical goods. On top of all the other things, Rachel is a professional graphic designer. And then I'll leave you with the final words before we start diving into some of the tiers.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to read through our campaign. Help support a diverse crew of independent creators by backing our project, even if it's only $1. If nothing else, you'll have our eternal gratitude. Backers will also get access to work-in-progress content and other behind-the-scenes updates.
All right, and then let's take a look at some of these tiers too. So first thing up is the digital copy. You can get a digital copy of the finished volume when it's ready, your choice of English, Japanese, or French language for $10. So that was really cool that you were able to have this translated into Japanese and French. Did you have any help with Pepper from that, or did you have to go to a translator?
For Japanese, my Japanese teacher / tutor is also an interpreter and helped translate the scripts into Japanese.
That is so awesome.
And from there, we're going to polish it up with probably Pepper directly because, writing for manga is different from just translating into Japanese.
Because there's like, they have slang too, right? The way they say their words. Yeah.
And so there's stuff like that where it's like, we'll polish it up and we'll make it more natural. And then Mimi, current Mimi, who's on as an assistant, speaks French, of course.
Oh.
So they'll be able to help us. Those two will be able to help us translate. But then, for double checking, like I have other native speakers who can check. I may also pay outside translators to help. But
I gotcha.
Because we have native speakers on our team, I was like,
why not use them? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
And then for 15 or more, the deluxe digital edition, you'll not only get the digital copy, but the extra special version with extra art, bonus comics, and ramblings from the writer.
Yeah, some of those bonus comics are like, we're doing some of the 4-panel little gag strips about the process of making this. Mm-hmm. And like cultural differences that we ran into while making it. Like,
oh, that's cool.
American high schools don't have shoe lockers. That was a thing that we ran into because Pepper just drew like shoe lockers at the front of the school. It's like we don't have.
Yeah, what are those? Like, yeah, we don't. Like, do they walk around in their socks?
No, they have indoor shoes that they switch into in Japan.
We don't have those either. Well, I guess for gyms we do. They says don't have muddy shoes and stuff, but never for a school. That is that yeah. They are so much. I don't know how to word this. Their routines are so much more like cleanlier.
Yeah,
it feels like, you know what I mean?
Don't wear your dirty shoes inside, right?
Yeah. They want you to keep the floors clean, which I can have a lot of. You know, I tell my kids all the time, keep the shoes out. You know, keep them at the door.
Yeah,
tucking that mud in.
Yeah, and there's other little cultural things that we run into of like, you honestly working with and interacting with people from other countries on the regular, you start to learn like, oh, that's just American stuff, huh? Okay, you have a different outlook, you have a different perspective, different experience.
You really learn that America is just running around saying, "I'm America."
Yeah, and you're like, oh wait, no, you're wildly different. So yeah. We're gonna make some comments about that, and you know, I'm gonna do introductory text. I'm gonna do like little stories as well. So a lot of bonus stuff.
For $15 more, you're gonna get the physical edition. So you'll get a physical paperback book that includes the bonus materials inside of it.
Yep, and that's just for the simple like. You'll get a softback version, and we integrate all the extra bonus materials in it, and that's it. That's all you need.
For $10 more, at $40, you're going to do the deluxe physical edition, which is going to get you volume 1 physically and digitally. You'll get the digital bonus materials, a poster set, as well as stickers. And do you have any of the poster sets or stickers to show off right now?
Not right now, because probably we'll draw some original exclusive things for the posters. I don't want to just say like, we'll reuse some of that cover art that we have.
I can always appreciate when teams like go out of their way to make exclusive stuff for like the posters and stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah, similar with the stickers. Like we're gonna draw some exclusive stuff that will be for stickers.
All right, so for $60 or more, you're gonna get the hardcover edition, which is gonna be just a hardcover copy with the bonus materials inside this the book as well. Is this gonna include the poster set and stickers too, or is this just for the hardcover edition?
This is for just a simple hardcover edition, which was kind of requested by like 2 people. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and they got it, you know?
Yeah.
So for pledge $65 or more, you're gonna get the Pepper special. Are you a fan of our artist Pepper? Do you want a commissioned illustration of your original character or a character of your choosing? So this will get you volume 1 digitally plus a single character illustration for $65.
Yeah, and this is for the like Pepper has thousands of followers, and it's for those folks who are like, you know, I don't like need a physical copy, or I would check it out. But, you know, I'm really a fan of the artist. And so, okay, well, if you want a drawing of your character, this is the one for you.
And then pledge $150 or more, the Super Deluxe Edition. So this is going to be a limited edition hardback cover of the book. Along with the previous rewards, you'll also get a random doodle from Pepper inside the book and your name on our special thanks page. So that's really cool. She's going to draw inside, or they're going to draw inside the book for anyone who gets this tier.
Yeah. So it'll be like on the inside, like the head of a character or a little doodle or something like that, which I always like. I really enjoy those sort of personalization touches to just like, and there's a little head of Camille inside of
this. Yeah, no, that is so cool.
But yeah, also the poster set, the stickers.
And a patch as well.
Yeah, this includes embroidered patch set. And I should have brought one out here with me, but I have a set of patches already made, or one patch made.
Do you?
And the thing is, there's no significance to it yet if you haven't read the whole volume. But like Estrella, the organization Alex works for, has an emblem that is a, the scales of justice, except it's a sword, and on either side of the handguard are the scales. And
that's
it has
so cool.
Some stars in the background, so it's a cool emblem. And
so you already have that made?
Yeah, I already have patches of that made.
Have you been putting on like your stuff?
Yeah, I did this back when we were like doing promotion for the animation. I was like, yeah, we're gonna make some shirts with these patches and like go show off.
That is so cool though. I mean, I could only imagine having like merch of my hard work and passion finally come to light. Like that has to be such a cool feeling.
Yeah, every time. And this is, I've said before, like my idea of success, the first step is getting that physical copy of my book and like, this is it. And then after that, I have to sell it.
So right now we are at $500, and this is secret menu number 1. So get all the lower tier rewards plus an illustration of your choosing from Pepper, a custom designed Rapture Burger t-shirt, and a handmade plushie of Linus. That is awesome. So who is making the plushie?
We have multiple friends who make props. One of our
You're
friends,
surrounded by like just a network of friends to have.
yeah, she did props for the Book of Boba Fett and the new Mandalorian season, I think.
Oh my god.
This is just LA. Like, you meet enough people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a close friend of ours, I checked with her before I put this on there. Like, hey, let's say I wanted to make a plushie of the dog character from the book. Would you be able to do that? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. Here's an example of the work I've done in the past. So yeah, that's something that I have somebody on hand who can make that.
That is so cool.
But
down below. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the illustration in this case, so the special tier for $65 is a single character illustration, and it's limited to 10. But this $500 or more it can be a more complex illustration.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to talk it out and figure out what it will be of. But then also the embroidered baseball cap, a t-shirt, and the plushie. So we're trying to load this up to say,
yeah. So underneath this, for 1,000 more at $1,500, we have the secret menu item number 2. Get all the rewards of the previous tiers plus an hour-long meeting with the whole team and talk to them about whatever you want. You'll get an exclusive Rapture Burgers employee t-shirt. That's awesome as well, in the style of a fast food restaurant with your name embroidered on it, and you'll practically be part of the team.
Yep. Yeah, and that's something that we'll probably do for the team members as well, as because there's, again, Rapture Burgers exist in this universe as a fast food restaurant, so of course they're going to have like a McDonald's or Burger King style shirt.
That is awesome. Yeah, that is so cool.
And the meeting with the team would be like, especially having Rachel on, having Pepper on, and it's to talk about, like, do you want to know how manga is made? Do you want like to hear about MCU stories? Do you like hit us with it, whatever you got? We'll play mahjong with you if you want.
And you have a back too. What was your feeling when you saw someone back it?
They must really like us.
Or they really want that shirt.
Yeah, they really want to talk to us or something. I was like, I mean, the most expensive tier is the best deal, by the way.
Yeah, because you get it all. You literally get every single thing. That's awesome. Yeah, that is so cool. So I feel like we pretty much broke down every part of this. Is there anything that we might have missed in this campaign?
Well, I missed some typos, but
hey, like I said, I told you, I wasn't joking. We're gonna go through your Kickstarter in depthly. So I'm glad I held up to my end of the bargain on that. Let me go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fix that as soon as we're off of this. Yeah.
All right, let's move to the main chat. So real quick, while we're here, we just looked over it. For anyone that's on the fence for backing your Kickstarter, what would you like to say to them directly?
I mean, feedback is kind of appreciated. Like, is there something that you would like to see that would like push you over the edge? Is there something that I didn't describe that, or maybe I described it in this interview that helped? But mostly to say that we have experience. Like, I've made 3 books in the past. Rachel is, again, a professional like graphic designer and production designer. So like, our team is solid, I think. And we will absolutely finish this, and we will absolutely get it made and released. So I hope there's some trust in our team that like we'll do it.
You're the first person that's ever, like, because I've asked that question a lot. I've done this, my 71st interview. 71st. Why? That sounds so weird. But it's and I always ask that question. You're the first person to be like, well, what can we change to make it better? Like, I love that so much, because after every single interview, I always ask post interview questions like, how can I make my interview better? So like, when you said that resonated with me so hard. I love that.
Well, and the thing is, the in the video, I scroll through the page, and it's wildly different from the page that I landed on. The
intro as well. The little part, you call him a bumbling idiot, and you change that as well.
And some of that just came from reading Kickstarter guidelines, checking other things, and just revising it a little bit, and then revising a lot, because I was like, what art looks best to represent this? What art will get people to be drawn to it? Should I, like, I was like, I shouldn't rehash all the stuff in the video, because that's why the video is there.
Yeah.
So I'm not to say that I'm constantly updating, because I stopped updating it, but I am looking for, like, what's the formula that people are looking for that gets them to latch onto it. So,
and I think that's like the secret for everybody, right? Like everybody
right.
wants that little like how to do it, and honestly, I think the only way to do it is just to do it and see what's worked best. Like, is this your first Kickstarter?
My first Kickstarter, everything else was like I would just go physically and carnival bark at people and sell them books.
Yeah, I mean, for your first Kickstarter, you in just a short amount of days were able to hit a goal that a lot of people, with their second and third were, that's their goal is 3,000 to 4,000. So like, I would say for your first one, you're killing it right now.
And I realized also that I was like, I looked at others. Some of them go for $2,000. Some of them go for $5,000 as their goal. And I was like, I understand that. Set your goal low. You can reach it very quickly and hope for like going over. And I could do a budget breakdown, but honestly, basically all of the money is going towards Pepper and printing books. That's 100%. If it's not going towards making the things for the campaign, it's going directly to pay Pepper to increase our pace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came up with the number that it won't cover the cost of actually drawing the book, but it'll supplement the costs that I'm paying out of pocket to help us speed up.
Yeah, because Pepper definitely has the experience. So I can only imagine, something of that Excalibur has to come with a price.
Yeah, and we've negotiated. We're like monthly. We sort of have a monthly deal, which is the way it worked out best. But it's I can only pay so much out of my own pocket because it comes out of my own pocket. I have a house to pay for. I have swords to pay for.
Swords to pay for, yeah, dude.
No. I stopped buying swords. All right, I have enough. I have like 7 or 8 swords floating around here.
You're not supposed to sword fight, but you're prepared.
You got they're all from Japan, and I'm trying not to be a collector. I'm really trying not to be a collector.
It's hard though, because you see another cool one, you're like, this price is right.
Like, and for me, I've gotten to a technical point with swords where I can look at a description online and go, it's this way along the back. It has maybe this blade profile. The length is this much. I think it would be good for these things. Do I have a use for it? Or in some minor cases, a 35-inch sword is definitely too long and unwieldy, but it's real pretty, and I would hang it on the wall.
Cool as hell. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a tangent about swords, but we're really the Kickstarter is also to help us out with like that encouragement of seeing people want to support you, right? Because I can make things in a vacuum forever. Like I can just work with my team and make stuff and crank it out. But it's really not if you build it, they will come. Because like if you dump something on the internet, nobody cares.
Because they don't know who you are, right?
Yeah, they don't know who you are. They don't know how to get to it. So it's recognizing that Kickstarter is also a very good marketing platform. And that doing a campaign is marketing and trying to draw eyes to it. And so I have ads running on Facebook, ads running on Twitter sometimes. And of course, I'm like retweeting and interacting with people just to like raise the awareness. And so, that's ultimately the goal is like, I want to know that there are people waiting for it or that they're interested in it,
Hey, well, I definitely appreciate you coming on here, breaking down Rapture Burgers, breaking down not only that, but the Kickstarter and everything in between. I had such an awesome time reading the preview. You can check out the preview for free from the Kickstarter or on Global Comics as well. Chris, before we end things, I want to ask you one more question. And this is like my favorite question of all, because let's face it, there's a lot of people that watch this because they love comics and manga and webtoons, but there's also indie comic creators that watch this because they want to, get some tools for themselves, try to get some info that might help them along the way. So for anyone that's watching and they're struggling to kind of get their own idea off the ground, or they're working through revisions and they're getting stuck and they don't know, how to push through, what type of advice would you give them to kind of give them that motivation to just work through that barrier?
My go-to advice has become, don't ask permission to tell your story. Because we all get caught up on that. I'm going to submit to a publisher. A publisher will pick me up. A manager will pick me up. That's my goal. I'm just making this for a submission packet, and then everything will be great. And I'm like, maybe, but for me, I just started to say, even with the animation stuff, like, you know what? I'm not going to sit around and wait for somebody to give me permission to make the story that I want to tell. So I started to just find my ways to be able to tell the story. And if it's not an animation, like I really like manga, and let's do that. And even the original graphic novel, it was like, in my mind, it's all animated, but animation is expensive. And
Yeah.
you know, it's finding, and then what? I'm animating and throwing it into the void. So it's being able to adapt and adjust and find the medium that works, but more than anything, just tell your story. And the way I write is I can't force myself to write. So I can't say I'm going to sit down for 8 hours and I'm going to write. I basically have to ride the feeling of I'm having shower thoughts. Like I'm having a shower and I'm like working through the story. So I'm like always writing. My mind is always working on the story, but I'm not necessarily typing it in until I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. Let me grab my phone, punch.
Yeah.
And so that's generally how I write. And then I like to write drafts very fast. I don't worry about dialogue. I put placeholder dialogue all the time, and I just crank out I'm aiming for a framework. So I try to write out the framework of the story that I'm going to tell, hit the important points, and this might be after I do an outline. And to me, it's much easier to just revise something that already exists. So if I write a super rough draft, I'll go back and like, well, that dialogue sucks, or that has no dialogue. And I'll spend hours just like cranking away on dialogue. So for me, it's an iterative process, and that's the best way to think about writing for me. Because I also write code because I work in tech, and that's an iterative process.
Okay,
We have the idea
cool.
of like an MVP, which is minimum viable product, or like a proof of concept. And so that's the way I think is I'm going to write the most basic functional version of this and then revise it and revise it and revise it.
No, that is really cool. That's a really cool process as well. I really appreciate you kind of breaking that down too, because that's been a little bit more of a unique answer than I'm used to hearing. So that's why I always ask, because I love hearing the different perspectives. But with that being said, guys, it is time for us to wrap things up. Chris, thank you so much for coming on here once again and breaking Rapture Burgers with us, and everything in between, and everyone on that's watching Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Here is the Kickstarter link. Be sure to get on there, check it out. If you don't have the money to back, check out the preview and share the preview. Share the previews. You know, your friends might like this, family might like it. You know, you'd be surprised. So if you can't back it, spreading the word's free, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate any shares, any attention you can give it. I'm only one person, you know. I can only do so much.
Yeah, and it's absolutely free just to help spread the word. So with that being said, guys, have a fantastic Thursday, but most importantly, keep it geekly.